everyone, and welcome back to Dietitians Beyond Borders. I'm your host, Jennifer Chelhoub, a registered dietitian, and I'm so excited for you to get to know Sarah Arneo, our guest for the day. She is a dietitian from the United States, working at the John Tudor Cancer Center as an oncology dietitian. Before we start and dive into the world of nutrition here in the U.S., our main goal for today is always as we were talking last time, focusing on every single country, their obstacles when it comes to nutrition and dietetics, the opportunities that dietitians are exposed to every day, and especially in a big country like that. Truly there are so many doors that can be opened, and I can't wait. I can't wait
Yeah,
to
I'm excited to be here. This is
yes.
awesome. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So before we dive into our discussion, I'd love for you to share a little bit about your journey. What inspired you to become a dietitian, and what
Sure.
does your current work look like?
Okay, yeah, definitely. So my road to becoming a dietitian wasn't exactly traditional or the conventional way. I did not study nutrition and dietetics in my undergraduate career, so I knew I was very passionate about science. Always, I knew I wanted to pursue a career in the health field. But really what I wanted to do was a big question mark for a while, definitely in my undergrad school time. So I did study human biology at SUNY Albany, which is a state university in New York State. And really what that degree was a biology degree combined with an anthropology degree.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So I was able to, take all the bio classes that would set me up to really go into any sort of career in the health space. At that time, I was more leaning towards, I would probably say becoming a physician's assistant, medical school, chiropractic school, PT, OT, those types of things. But it was the anthropology aspect of it made it a little bit more holistic and taught, I think, enforce the knowledge on really how to approach healthcare, definitely from that more holistic manner. So leaving college, I definitely thought that I wanted to keep going with the health career pursuit, but I definitely knew that I was interested in oncology. So I wanted to start there. I knew I was interested in oncology, and research has always been an interest of mine. So I did get a job. I was thankful to get a job at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center in New York City. And there I was hired as a research study assistant for a team that basically managed all the biopsies and blood draws and biospecimen collections for the studies there. And that is why I bring all that up, is because it was through all those experiences that I think led me to my decision to become a dietitian, because it really was at my job at Memorial Sloan Kettering working with oncology patients that I became very passionate about the idea of nutrition and the impact that it had on oncology patients. More specifically, how nutrition could improve not only the outcomes of patients, but improve the efficacy of their cancer treatments that they were currently getting. So that is when I decided to go back to get my master's degree at Hunter College, another state university of New York. And I pursued my master's in clinical dietetics or clinical nutrition. And I moved on to get do my internship. And that was at New York Presbyterian Hospital, another hospital in New York City. And the primary focus of that was more clinical, but we were able to kind of move through clinical research, food service, as most internships are. And then I kind of, jumped right into the workforce. So I went into clinical first, as I feel like a lot of people do.
Yes.
I think that's fairly common in the United States, at least. But I knew I wanted to really get into that oncology space. So that's what my goal was. So I was luckily offered a job at the John Thayer Cancer Center back in 2021. So I'd been a dietitian for just a couple of years, working in other clinical and patient settings. And I was offered a job there. So that, and becoming an oncology dietitian was really, that's when that fully started, when I could really focus my attention.
Wow.
So I was hired just as a clinical dietitian at the cancer center. My population that I started working with was with GI or gastrointestinal patients and lung cancer patients. And then I pivoted into the blood cancer space about a year ago. So I'm still working with gastrointestinal patients, now working with the multiple myeloma population of blood cancer.
My goodness.
Yeah. So it's been a journey where I've just kind of taken my foundation and just have kept on building.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I'm at right now, which is interesting. I am also board certified as an oncology dietitian, which officially makes me an oncology dietitian. But that's been something that I've had now for the past, I want to say, almost 2 years. Yeah.
This is incredible. Incredible. I love this story and journey, because truly, as you mentioned at the beginning, you started somewhere, but you weren't sure. Like, you were interested in research, interested in, the science of things, health sciences, right? But look how, this journey took, like, just took you, and this is where you are, an oncology dietitian, and having that certification. I mean, being a dietitian, as we know, is like I feel like a blessing, right? Like a bonus.
Yeah.
But also, as an oncology dietitian, working with this huge, the patient population, super. I mean, we're gonna talk about this a bit, maybe at least in general with the audience. As an oncology dietitian, truly, there's so much that usually people don't think about, like what we do. It's like we're a huge asset in this interdisciplinary team, which truly is very rewarding, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Good.
Yes.
So
that's a little bit about me.
Yes, and we love that. Every country has different paths to becoming a dietitian.
Yeah.
Here in the US,
Yes.
can you please give us a brief,
a highlight?
a highlight explanation? How can we become a dietitian in the United States?
Yes. Okay. So the current requirements, to my knowledge, is that you have to have at least a graduate degree. And typically people will pursue a graduate degree in nutrition or dietetics. I'm pretty sure it doesn't have to be in nutrition, but that's the traditional route, to my knowledge. So a graduate degree is required. So that would be a master's level degree. And then after you get your master's, or in conjunction with your master's, you also need to obtain 1,200 hours of supervised practice. So that supervised practice is what I refer to as that dietetic internship before. So I did mine at New York Presbyterian Hospital, but supervised practice hours can happen in many different settings. Really, as a student, I think it's always encouraged to choose your internship or those hours in definitely an area or an environment that you may see yourself working in, or an area that you want to build your skills. So we typically have to apply to an internship or a program to be able to get those hours done, which can be very competitive. It's like a matching program, similar to like a residency.
Wow.
Yeah, which is, a lot of people don't know that. It's quite a journey to get to that point. And then once you complete those supervised hours, you have to pass a national exam. And that's your registered dietitian exam, which is
it's
fun.
A tough
It's a
one.
tough exam. And the exam is is not just, clinical. So if you just did your internship in clinical dietetics, it doesn't just cover that, right? It's covering all areas. And what I mean by that is definitely here in the United States, you can, to be a dietitian, you don't just have to work in a hospital or in a clinical setting. A dietitian works in several different settings. They work in food service, they work in community, they work in clinical, they work in public health, they work in corporate settings, they have private practice settings. So those are definitely some of the main ones. They work in educational settings. So the exam really encompasses all areas, which makes it a bit difficult for, I think, individuals whose, let's say, program or supervised practice wasn't necessarily, let's say, in food service. But once you pass that exam, you are officially a registered dietitian. And those, I think, are the main criterias. Some states in the United States, not all states, I don't know how many states off the top of my head, but have state licensure. So in some states, in addition to passing the national exam, you have to obtain state licensure, which usually isn't another test, usually requires that you submit some transcripts and basically a fee, extra money, to obtain that licensure, which further protects your ability to practice and separates you. And well, I'm sure we're going to talk about this more, from others in the public eye. Yeah.
What a journey, honestly.
It's
like
complicated. There's a lot of steps. It's not just go to school and then decide you want to become a dietitian here.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, like, we remember, right, that this whole graduate school plus DI came like 2024. Like, it wasn't that way before.
Yep.
Now, I remember when I moved, and the audience knows, I think, when I moved to this country, I mean, I had an undergrad in Notre Dame University back in Lebanon, but I needed to do a master's program plus DI. I mean, I could have done a DI on its own, but I'm like, let me take advantage. Let me do double the work.
That was smart.
But still, it was very rewarding, and we always say, right, nutrition is such a young science. So having that degree added on to, that scope, that field, just gives you that, I mean, in my opinion, stronger value.
I think it does, and it really, deepened. I mean, for someone like me, who was coming from definitely a heavy science background, but I hadn't taken one nutrition class as an undergrad at all. I mean, I was, had a general idea. I took enough classes on anatomy, physiology, physics, chemistry. My gosh, but nutrition, no. So that master's in nutrition really honed my skills and my knowledge in nutrition, and learning so deeply about something like vitamins and minerals and how they're metabolized through the body makes you such a stronger practitioner. I've specifically found it to be helpful in the clinical space.
That's wonderful. So we already spoke about it a bit, but in your experience, how is dietetics integrated in the US healthcare system?
So, it really depends, I think, on where you're working. It's definitely integrated well into the US health system.
That's good.
Being that public health is such a major focus, I think, of the healthcare system. And public health issues a lot of the times do revolve around nutrition problems. We are definitely pulled in. Now, as far as, the voice of the dietitian in the healthcare system, I think that's still evolving. I think we are present and we're required, but I think depending on where you work, sometimes your voice and your knowledge isn't always fully I'm going to say maybe fully appreciated to the extent that I believe it should be, because it just depends on, you know, the team that you're on and if they value nutrition. And it kind of, you know, it just is really dependent on that.
Do you feel like those who are newer in the field when it comes to nursing or doctors or social workers, like anybody who's part of the interdisciplinary team, the younger ones, the ones who just, just graduated, the
Yeah.
fresh out of, the academic cocoon,
School, yeah.
do you feel like they appreciate us a bit more? Do you feel like these days, this is
Yeah,
getting a bit
I
better?
think because I think the idea of the multidisciplinary team is, say, is more recent. It's always been present, but again, it's more of a it's definitely pushed more now to have these varying disciplines and input for the patient, right?
Mm-hmm.
Approaching things at different angles. Absolutely. I think, you know, the younger group or the younger generation or people who just graduate, definitely it's enforced more, I think, in their schooling, the importance of nutrition and the presence of a dietitian in the healthcare space, that they don't have to be the one who's in charge of providing nutritional advice to the patient. There's actually an expert, you know, as
Literally.
part of the team.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think so, from what I've seen, at
That,
least. Yeah.
that's good. So things are going the right way,
I
which is
feel
good.
it is.
Yeah.
I feel it is. I mean,
Good.
I think we definitely have work to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that we are moving in a positive
Progress.
direction.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. So the US has a major influence on global food trends and public health initiatives, as we were talking.
Yeah.
What are some of the biggest nutrition trends you've noticed in recent years, whether in clinical practice, public health, or just, any consumer nutrition situation?
So I think, generally speaking, obesity has been a big issue here in the United States. So as far as public health initiatives and concerns, trends, a lot revolve around how to improve that, right? How to improve or lower the statistics of individuals who are obese in our country, because we do know that obesity is such a risk factor for so many chronic diseases, right?
100%.
So I would say most of the trends are revolving around that. So whether that be lowering added sugar in your diet, which many people are focused on now, whether that be adding more fruits and vegetables, plant-based eating is a huge buzzword here. What the plate should look like. We use the My Plate method with our patients or with our clients. Those are some big overarching themes, I would say. Looking less at low-fat diets, but instead enforcing more healthy fats through unsaturated sources. I think years ago, when they were trying to push people to become healthier weights, it was all about cutting calories. And how do you cut calories? The quickest way is to cut fat, right? Because we know fat contributes the most to calories per gram. But really, what we found out through research is, monitoring definitely total carbohydrates in the diet.
Oh, yes.
Which typically are overeaten by many people. And definitely modifying and lowering the amount of processed food in the diet can really be helpful in managing weight and making sure that you're a healthy weight. But in addition to that, making sure that your metabolism and your I'm missing the word in my head, but your biochemistry, like your cholesterol and your blood sugar and your blood pressure, all those things are in check. Okay. What the weight is on the scale isn't always really a true depiction of health. There are very thin people who have blood sugar that are through the roof, that have heart disease, that have things like that. So it's kind of evolving as we're moving as we're finding out more about kind of how the human body works and processes nutrition.
And it's so interesting because, usually an individual, when, as you mentioned, they see like a weight on the scale, and that's the panic. That's where people usually, feel like, oh my God, there's something wrong. Let's do, and especially when it comes to weight management, right?
Totally.
But it's the whole picture. It's everything that comes within, and there's no right or wrong here. And that's why, a lot of people, I'm sure, and they ask you as well, oh, can you write for us a menu,
a meal plan.
a meal plan?
Yeah, they want to know exactly what they should be eating.
And with no background, with no enough information to see how we can do it the most individualized way, because they think that they're already done, right? They're like papers distributed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what you find with weight management is that it's usually very emotional, right? So I know I say to my clients a lot, I could sit here and tell you all the fruits and vegetables you should be eating, but let's be serious. You know exactly the fruits and vegetables you should be eating. You need to drink more water. You know what you need to do to be able to obtain this goal of yours. But there's something beyond that is affecting you. So I think as a dietitian, you definitely have to wear the hat, almost as a psychologist sometimes, which is a really tricky spot because you're not a psychologist, right? So you have to just be able to counsel someone appropriately, but then also refer to a mental health team to help an individual be able to get to the place where they are able to make those changes.
100. Wow, like you literally said that out of my mouth. Truly, this is so important. Important. Do you think public perception of dietitians has changed over time? Are more people seeking evidence-based, right? This is very important, bold underline, evidence-based nutrition advice from RDs, or is misinformation still a major problem in this country?
Oh, Jen, I wish I could say that we've made a lot of progress with this. I still think misinformation is more of an issue here in the United States.
Especially with social media, right?
Especially with social media playing a role. I definitely think so. Unfortunately, I have honestly in my current job many conversations with patients who say they see nutritionists all the time, health coaches, and it's not that these people have a passion for nutrition, which is wonderful. They can give probably basic advice on nutrition, but they don't have those 1,200 hours of supervised practice. They don't have that master's degree. They don't have that real strong knowledge, the exam. So there is still a lot of confusion, the difference between what the registered dietitian, the RD, is versus a nutritionist or health coach, and what the benefits of that. The phrase of evidence-based science, I think unless you are educated about it, unless you've been in a educational program where you've heard that buzzword and the importance of evidence-based science, evidence-based nutrition therapy, I don't think really people understand what that means. And beyond that, even if you say, is it evidence? Is there evidence? People say, oh yeah, there's evidence. There's been studies on mice, and there's been a case report of a person who took this supplement and their cancer went away or whatever it is, and I'm like, that's not really strong evidence. People don't understand what's good evidence, right? What's good research. So we still have a long way to go with that one.
Maybe you'll create a podcast about
I tend to be interested in the research realm. In my current job, I actually do a program called the Cutting Edge Kitchen. And what we really do is we educate people on evidence-based nutrition. So the first 5 minutes of the program actually take time to talk about what it means for something to be evidence-based, how to find credible credible resources, and not just to take something off the internet and or social media and run with it.
So many people come to us, and I'm sure other dietitians deal
Yeah.
with it as well. They come in, some clients come in crying, some others they come super concerned.
Yeah.
They can't eat this, they can't eat that, especially in the oncology realm, or even other people who are dealing with diabetes, renal function, renal dysfunction, you name it, any single condition that the individual can face. There's so much out there that cannot be relied. Like, even sometimes when you look up on Google, like, let's say you broke a nail, right?
Yeah.
And then the reasoning, you might get cancer because of it, like, based on the information that is written. So
It's the internet. Anything can populate, really.
and people can get like overwhelmed, anxious, stressed, and just go into that loop. So that's why I'm grateful for our profession, truly, because it just makes their life easier on the nutrition aspect, at least.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. So, I think we have a little bit to go. I hope that the more that state licensure becomes present here, it will protect our credential a bit and hopefully lessen the amount of nutritionists or health coaches that are out there giving advice to people, or and just make it more aware, I think, to the public eye that we are really the licensed experts of nutrition.
Oh yeah. Yep. Great. What are some of the biggest challenges that dietitians face today in this country, whether it's within the healthcare system and private practice policy? I mean, we just spoke about one huge challenge, deciphering between, our scope of expertise with other individuals who were trying to do the same thing like we are, but with no license.
With no license, or
but
credential.
what other challenges you've experienced, or maybe your coworkers have experienced? What do you
I think
think?
that's a really great question. Definitely, I would say definitely the misinformation, or the really owning our space or holding that space in the healthcare setting is difficult, because even some people on the interdisciplinary team don't fully know the difference between a registered dietitian and nutritionist, and that's
still call us nutritionists,
right.
By the way.
They're nutritionists, right? Or dietary, which is really an old term, right? So that's frustrating. I think that's a struggle for a lot of people, because if people don't know the difference, people don't understand our depth of knowledge and our expertise, of course they don't appreciate our work as much. They appreciate it, but I don't think they really understand like how much of an expert we are in the field. Our knowledge goes beyond giving somebody, an oral supplement when they're not eating, right? But I think it's also the job of the dietitian to show your place, right? I know I work very hard in my practice to identify micronutrient deficiencies, to diagnose malnutrition, to have those open, honest conversations with my team about these patients and what we can do as a team to make it better. So I think that's how you fix that. I think another struggle as being a dietitian in the United States is, I want to say, professional growth, perhaps, or career ladders. I think right now it's difficult in many, definitely clinical settings, to grow easily. I think that, you get hired as a registered dietitian. In some settings, you have like RD1, RD2, RD3, but you're really not seeing like a huge difference or huge differences in what is entailed.
Whether it's the job,
it's the job, or if you're doing extra things like research projects, compensation, those things, and that's a major struggle. And I think you just nailed it, right? When it comes down to it, unfortunately, not being able to properly grow also means you're not able to properly keep making more money. And here, in the United States, when we are surrounded by a lot of individuals who are making a lot of money, and also, we're probably fall somewhere in the middle, dietitians, right? We make a decent salary,
Way better than before.
way better than before. But for how much work and how much schooling that is required to become a dietitian, the same as, let's say, becoming a physician's assistant or a nurse practitioner, those industries are making probably double the salary.
Oh yeah, and
which is pretty disappointing.
Truly,
I think
very
we're
sad.
just as important in the healthcare system. So I think that professional growth, and I think, to tie the two together, those struggles, right? Not fully being understood or appreciated sometimes by the teams, and then also the lack of growth. Those go hand in hand. I think if we were more seen as the expert, as the only expert of nutrition, we'd be valued more, and there'd be more opportunity to probably grow on the team and grow into senior level positions within the hospital setting. Yeah.
No, 100%. And it's like, and just because I'm somebody who comes from a different country and moved here, 100. I mean, hands down, this is a country filled with opportunities, filled with, and in any job, but like in our field, because obviously I did my research before I moved here, lots of opportunities, but as you mentioned, it's not an easy path. It's not an easy route. You have to do the work times 2 and times 3 to get to where you want, like everything in life. But yes, you have to step it up, and hopefully with more licensure, just more growth in our profession, we will be valued more. This is kind of what
I think it's the overall theme. Now there are different sectors. I happen to work more in the clinical space, right? But community, food service, private practice,
we're everywhere.
Research, there are individuals who are able to, I think, take more of an entrepreneurial approach to things, and they can make a very decent salary. But again, it's not easy. It takes a lot of hard work and that creativeness and that drive to pull it together. When honestly, I think, for the most part, it should be fairly easy to make a decent salary. You shouldn't feel like you have to have multiple jobs when you've just spent 6 years in school to become a dietitian.
Yeah. You nailed it again.
Good.
So, on the flip side, what opportunities, I mean, we already also spoke about this a bit, what opportunities you see like happening in the dietetics world in this country, what things we are looking forward to, something that hopefully will be changing? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think we are evolving in many ways. I think recently the fact that the master's is required for our profession does change things. I think it will help to definitely elevate our profession. And that will have a domino effect in, I think, how we're viewed in the healthcare system for sure. In addition to that, I think that nutrition, the public health crises, the epidemic of diabetes, chronic kidney disease, these major chronic illnesses, cancer, that are becoming so prevalent. And there's been so much research in the past 5-10 years to show the role of nutrition, right, in those diseases, and specifically the role of nutrition in prevention of those diseases. So I personally think that there's going to be a lot more demand for the work of dietitians, specifically in the prevention space. We do know that obviously we can always work with patients once they have a disease state to improve their outcomes. But I do personally believe that our best work, our most impactful, as far as preventing diseases, we can make a very much of a tangible difference in that time period. It's a very sensitive time period, but lifestyle interventions have shown to be very impactful for prevention purposes.
It's the ideal picture. And as we, I'm not sure if I said that before, I don't think so, but as we know, right, in order for you to stay away or like
Yeah.
prevent from any, chronic disease, yes, 20% is through genetics, but we have 80% of, lifestyle factors, whether it's, our, I hate to say the word diet, but our lifestyle, our dietary lifestyle, our physical activity, environmental factors, all of that truly play a role.
Yeah, and on top of that, I mean, I think there's been a lot of research or continuing research that will be happening more and more on the idea of like nutrigenomics.
Oh,
And that area is specifically how nutrition can act on genes and act on mutations that are happening in our body. And if you ask me, I think that's just wildly fascinating. Definitely an area that I would probably be interested in discovering more. But that's huge, right? Because you just said, we know that genes and our genetics plays such a huge role in the fate of our health and lifestyle, of course. But if we could kind of show that we have a space in both of those, right? I think that would really increase the value of the dietitian.
I can't wait. I can't wait for more, research to come, up through those and trying any way to implement. Wow, that would be like,
isn't that crazy?
Insane.
Yeah, I know.
Yes.
So I see that happening. I mean, I think that if you ask a dietitian who's been in practice for 20, 25 years, even 10 years ago, that wasn't a discussion, right? I think we're really talking about those types of things like nutrigenomics, personalized nutrition, how to incorporate that in more traditional clinical settings, how to incorporate that in the community setting. That I think that's definitely a focus. And then lastly, in the community setting, which we can't discount this, I think access. I would hope access to food, access to healthy foods, resources to support individuals. One of how we identify, the United States all over the world as as a melting pot of all different cultures, and it being so diverse. But not only diverse in cultures, diverse in many other different ways. But it's important to step outside of your area. I think that I can speak as a dietitian who's from the Northeast, in the New York metropolitan area. But if you talk to a dietitian who's from Ohio or the middle of Wyoming or California, or all different places in the United States where resources are different, socioeconomic levels are different, they're facing the struggles, the things that they're facing is very different. And for some populations, food access is such a main issue. So I hope that evolves, because it's such a big problem, that really is fueling, I think, a lot of these public health issues.
It's this is very important to know, ladies and gents, that yes, US obviously is one country, but every state, within the state, you have those communities, whether it's those who are, knock on wood, they're okay, they can go on, but you have a lot that do not have the access, that deal with food insecurity. I feel like us, especially from outside of this country, we feel like, no, everything's great here, and it truly is. It's an amazing country that provides, again, as we always say, lots of growth and opportunities, and you can make it here. But it doesn't mean that it's picture perfect. It doesn't mean that there are struggles that are going on here, and we see patients every day dealing with, you know, socioeconomic concerns, especially when it comes to food. Food, like
Yeah.
we're not even getting into medications, just food, which
Right.
is, you know, our basic
We need food to
we
live,
need it,
you
we need
know.
it.
It makes it very challenging
Yeah,
when you are talking to someone, especially in the oncology field. You know, a lot of our nutrition therapy has to do with increasing protein and
yeah,
calories.
yeah.
And, you know, these things are very expensive. It's hard to tell somebody to go to the store and buy protein shakes, protein powder, healthy fats, avocados, olive
Olive
oil,
oil.
nuts, some of the most expensive things, really. I mean, in the grocery store, and they can barely, you know, go to the store and buy milk or
Or
bread
eggs
or
these
eggs.
days.
You know, eggs right now are very expensive, but the
I'm
basics,
like
the
laughing, but
staples. Yeah, you know what I mean? And forget about it if they have a family. So it's just it's something that I think we always have to keep in mind as a dietitian, and I'm sure that translates across the across the world as well. Yeah.
Well, I love talking to you today, and you know, having this conversation. I feel like people, especially, you know, all around the world, truly do not know how much dietetics and nutrition is like crucial here. It is getting better, but it is crucial.
Yeah,
You
it is.
know, I mean, I can't compare with Lebanon, because Lebanon is a, you know, very very tiny country, but there are, you feel valued here, you
You do.
feel you're the, like you have a presence, whether, as you mentioned, in the clinical realm, research, industry. You know, like there are dietitians in supermarkets, ladies and
Yeah,
gentlemen.
there
You
is.
know, it is
Yeah.
just amazing.
Yes. Yes.
And yeah, that's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
So before we wrap up,
Yeah.
I'd love to hear from you, what is one key takeaway or piece of advice you'd like to share with aspiring dietitians or anyone interested in nutrition, or, you know, the audience?
Yeah, definitely. You know, I always like to encourage people to find their passion, to find their why. And I think this doesn't always have to be for nutrition and dietetics necessarily, probably for any young professional. But before we go into the field of nutrition, being that it is something that's evolving, and you know, I think we spent a lot of time talking today about it's we are valued, but it's and we're appreciated, but it's not an easy road,
Oh
right?
yes,
It's not an
you
easy
have to
road.
hustle in.
You have to hustle. So finding why you wanted to go in this, like my passion, right, to and my drive, stemming from my work as a research study assistant, you know, 10, 12 years ago now, to help oncology patients, right? To make a difference in their life. To know that I'm interested in research and want to drive that forward. You know, try to find a focus that you can always come back to, that allows you to kind of keep going and pushing your way and owning your spot in the field, because that ultimately is going to make you successful. I think we both can speak to this, but you know, you go to school, you learn all these wonderful things, you're educated, you have all this great knowledge, and then you go into something like a clinical practice specifically. I can speak to that. And a lot of people are still like doing things that are very dated or in yesteryears, or you know, not what we learned. There's a gap, not what we learned in
A huge
school.
gap, yeah.
So I encourage the young professionals, people graduating, to don't be afraid to educate people on your team. Don't be afraid to say, like, hey, ask a question. Why aren't we doing this? Right? Why can't we do this? Look for places to improve the care. Quality improvement projects, which we didn't talk about today, but is such an easy thing that we can do as dietitians, in the healthcare arena, that allow us to improve the nutrition processes. So again, we are more valued, right? Yeah, I think that kind of sums up probably what I'm most passionate about, and I think what kind of sets up you for success as a dietitian when you just start. Yeah.
This is incredible. Thank you so much,
Well,
Sarah,
thanks for
for,
having me.
being part of
Yeah.
this, journey, being here, part of this
Of
podcast.
course.
We learned a lot, right? And I can't wait to, see you keep on, glowing and flourishing in this field.
Yeah.
And, and as she said, somebody with a strong passion and a strong drive and a will to grow, there's nothing that stops you.
Yeah.
Nothing
Absolutely.
that stops you,
Absolutely.
as long as you keep your head up. And as well, life has its waves, right? Highs and lows, but as long as you keep on, putting that focus, that's the most important thing, right?
Absolutely. Agreed.
So
Well said.
good.
Yes.
So to our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with anyone interested in global nutrition. You can also follow me on Instagram and TikTok. You'll see the caption below, at RD's Beyond Borders. Yes. And yeah, until next time, stay curious, stay nourished, and keep exploring the world of nutrition. Thank you.